what I'd like to do is take you through setting up the template records, right, for Excel docs. So the assumption is you already have Excel docs installed inside your application. And what I'll do is we'll take a template, and I'm going to show you that in a second. Actually, well, I could just pop that up. We want to take an Excel template, such as this one, this expense statement, right? We want to fill it, okay? And I actually outlined. I'm going to have a little picture here. So what, you know, we're taking this template, and I literally downloaded this template off of the internet, and you know, and then we took a look at it, and so we mold a demo, and we molded a demo for application around the template, say, just so we can show some good information. And I'm outlining, you know, what we want to fill, meaning, you know, we have project name, number, and some static data, some header type information, but then we have detail information regarding expenses, you know, for the project. So what employee is involved in the expense, and all the different details on that, hotel expenses and fuel and meals, etc. So, and I'll show you the Quickbase app in a second, but I just wanted to show you what we're trying to achieve, you know, and like I said, this kind of maps it out. We have static data, almost like header information from the project, and then from a subtable of expense details, we're going to list it out in a report format right down here in all of these rows here. And the nice thing about Excel docs, if we go back to the template, right now we're looking at the template itself in Excel, is, you know, you may have calculations and formulas, etc., already set up like this template does. We're going to preserve all that, obviously. So we're just going to fill it with data and let Excel do the rest. Okay, so that's the template. And let me now, so I'm going to go to our site, juicetech.com, right? I'll click this icon, get me quickly over to the demo. So this page has quite a bit of info on Excel docs and all the different things you can do. Obviously, I'm not going to hit everything that it could do. And if you have questions, certainly ask away, but I want to at least take you through a setup, setting the template up, the records in the tables. So so here's the app, projects, and then there'll be expenses as well, line items. So when I'm going to go to a project record, so this is a project record, and this is the tab that I'll be working in. We actually, in the demo app, we have many tabs set up for this project record to show all the different types of use cases you might have for Excel docs. So you can play around with those and see what it can do. You know, obviously there's an install that gets done, and these two tables will get set up inside the app upon installation. Document templates, all right, and document subtable Excel, right? So master and dependent. So the document templates is the master, subtable Excel is the dependent table. And, you know, so basically you're going to create and set up the template, and then any detailed type data you need contained within that document, like I showed you, will be defined in this table. And I'll take you through that. So let me do a new document template, and I'm going to cheat a little bit because I have, in the interest of time, I already have a lot of this. I'm just going to kind of cut and paste, and I'm going to explain as I paste in here. So we're going to set up the employee expense template, right? Now, there's a few different fields obviously defined here on the document template layer. And by the way, Justin, if you could post in the chat the link to our help site. This is straight to Excel docs. This way people have that to potentially look along and refer to, right? The C list. So obviously it's just the name of the template or the document template, and then the C list, I'm going to paste in as well. The C list is a set of cell locations and field IDs. Justin, I actually have a link also to C-list. If you can post that as well.
I believe I just did.
Okay, good. All right, so in the C-list, we're actually defining the cell, it's cell location, B6, and field ID. All right, so if I bring up my Excel sheet again, you know, I'm putting data in B6, right? B6, and I'm going to put field ID 6 in there. And then B7 is my project number, and that's going to be filled with field ID 7, and so on, right? So we're gonna use this notation, which is cell location colon field ID dot cell location colon field ID dot cell location colon field ID. So that's kind of how you build out the C list, which is a column list. And I think I have some help in there. Next, you know, we're going to choose our template, which is the one I showed you. So that's that one. We're gonna call this, and this is free form. This is just going to be projects. So we're taking the information in the which is going to be contained in the header of that sheet from the projects table. I just need the DBID as well. So this is the table DBID. So this is more free form, the master table name, but this is it has to be exact. So this is the, if I hover over this, this is the actual master table, the project table DBID. Now, since we can put data on any tab we'd like, that's why we have this Excel sheet number, and I'm just going to put tab 1, right? So we're just going to put on the first tab, right? There's another option for PDF pages. I'll go over that in a little bit, but we're not going to PDF anything right now. Right, so I'm going to just save this. And now so now we have the header info defined. Now we're going to define, so now I have, like I said, let me bring up the template. I have these fields defined already, right? Coming from the projects table. And now I want to define my grid of data right here. All right, so again, same tab, but so I have to add, we're going to click this button, add document subtable Excel. Right, so we're going to add this record, and again, free form. This is going to be our expense sheet details. Right, the DBID of the table, important, obviously. Again, and that would be our, I think it's expense. Yeah, here it is. It's the expense sheets. So that's what it's projects and expense sheets. I think I mentioned line items. That's incorrect. So this is our subtable, right? So there's the DBID. Now the C list, again, the nomenclature is cell location colon field ID, cell location colon field ID, right? And I'm starting at the row A12 that I want to begin my subtable at. So here's A12. So A12, B12 is the account, C12 is the employee. So that's what this line is actually telling us. Again, cell location colon field ID from that expense sheets subtable.
Todd, why do you have a D in front of the 6?
Okay, so this is an additional item that we can actually embed inside. It's not required; it's optional. But this is actually saying that the format this as a date. See that first? Yeah, the first column is a date. Now it's not required, so I was going to stay away from it. We didn't really need it. I actually pasted it in, but it will tell you, and this is in the help site. It'll actually let you define the cell itself. Now, Excel lets you define the cell also. So you can say, oh yeah, this column B is general or currency, or I think I have them all as general here, but you can sort of override this Excel definition with these. And again, it's in the help that goes a little bit more in depth. You might also use that when you're embedding an image. And again, that's in the help site. It would be a dash I. And again, that's in the help. And okay, put a 6 there. Okay, so now that we defined the C list, okay, and again, the nomenclature, we're starting in row 12, so we're saying, yeah, when we issue the query and we're going to return multiple rows, but we're going to start in row 12, A12, and fill down the sheet. Sorting S list, that's what this S list is, sort list. So we're going to sort by date. Options, Justin, I actually have another link. If you could post that all in the chat. It goes through these different items here, especially the query, because when you set up a query, I'm going to fill in the query right now. When you fill in the query, right, this is Quickbase syntax to make a call to the subtable. It says, go to the related project field and pop in, pop in RK. Let me explain what that means in a second, actually. But if Justin will post the Quickbase API documentation for all of these options here, so that because this is all Quickbase related in order to pull data. All right. And ST list is subtotal. If we want a subtotal, we're not going to do that. We're going to let Excel do all that work, because you can let the template do as much work as possible. But we do have an option in here to subtotal. All right. So again, C list is our columns. S list is what are we sorting by. Options is a Quickbase, again, Quickbase nomenclature for, maybe I want to just sort in a special order, etc. Those options are in Quickbase documentation. And the query says, go to my related project and pull data. And I'm going to go through what I mean by RK in a second. ST list, subtotal, we're not going to do that. Tab sub report order. This is another option we have in here. So often, not often, but it happens from time to time. Customers want to embed a series of reports of data, one under each other. And that's what you can do with this sub report order. For instance, if I query and I add a whole set of data into the Excel sheet, then I want to go query another set of data and put that right under the first set. So you could actually say, this would be the first set, this would be the second set. So you can actually define, going right down the spreadsheet, all the queries and have them union, almost like back up against each other, or stack up on top of each other, right down the Excel sheet. It's not necessarily a common thing to do, but it's an option that we've had to build in for customers. A lot of our, we do take a lot of input from customers and requests. So these are the kind of things that come up from time to time. So they're here. They're not necessarily going to be used all the time, but I want to explain why they're here. So next thing we're going to do here is we're going to say max line items 10. Now, if we look at the spreadsheet, there's 10 lines here, right, in this sub report. So there's 10, and what we're saying is when you get to 10, do something else, and that could be insert more rows down the page, which is fine. We'll do that, and we'll preserve all the subtotaling and all the formulas that are already here, or insert a new tab. So let's say, all right, so after 10. Copy the first tab, create another tab, and start on that tab and start going down the page. So we're going to do that. Skip rows. So the query, you could say, skip every other row, and it'll actually you'd actually go 12, 14, 16, 20, 18. So you can actually say skip 2, and it can do that as well. Again, not always used, but available and can be handy. So the only other thing we need to do, so we're going to be on sheet 1, right? The only other option here that I want to check is data grid. So this says when you query the data here and you grab all the expense sheets, put it in a data grid. So if this wasn't checked, all it would do is return the first row. And again, it can be handy in certain circumstances to just return information one row or one record. But in this case, we're not. We want a data grid. So we're going to check this data grid. Each record is tab. I'll show that example in a second, meaning basically every expense sheet goes on a separate tab in the Excel sheet. We're not going to do that right now for this example. So here we go. So I'm pretty much defined as far as all the parameters that I needed. Now let me go actually, since I came back to my template record, and I want to show you the query has the RK in it. Okay, so what this means is when I issue my subtable query to get expense sheet details, I want to relate it. So I want to use field 18, which is the related project. And I want it to go and pull data for every project that every project record, right? So on the master, if you notice here on the project master record, I'm actually defining the RK. So we allow you to not only put in cell location field ID, but we allow you to create variables. Right, so we're saying RK, it could be whatever you want. I actually defined some other ones just to show you the fact that it can be, it's alpha colon the field ID. So in this case, I'm saying RK, so I know related key, and that's 3. So that's the record ID. So again, when I query to get my project, I want to use, so not only am I going to take the project number, name, date, etc., and pop that into the header or the master record, right? I also want to get the related data, but I want to use what I returned from the project in a sort of like a hidden variable, RK, in my query down below when I go and grab all my expense sheets that are related to the project. Okay, so hope that wasn't too confusing, but it's actually a neat option because, you know, in AA I'm putting the project number, which is field ID 7, and so I could actually change this query, and I will in a second just to show you that I could just use this variable or BB, whatever. So I think now the only other thing to do, this is our template ID 36 that we just defined, right? I'm just going to go back to my project record to run this. So if I go back to my button, which is right here, so the button which will generate this Excel sheet gets installed into the app as part of the installation. So there are a few parameters, and you know, in the interest of time, I'm not going to go through all of them right now. I can if you want to, but you know, all this is laid out in help as far as what goes behind the button. But I just wanted to show you the definition of the template and details. So now I'm going to just run, and hopefully this is going to work. So I'm going to run that sheet 30 that template definition record, if you will, to generate my Excel sheet. All right. And here comes the hope. Okay, so it's over on my other screen. Okay. So here it is. So it generated, so obviously you put in all the header info, you know, that we defined, and it started to fill in 12, right down to 21, right? It hit 10, once it hit 10, it said, oh, what do you want me to do? Well, I want you to put it on the next, add a new tab. So that's why it carried over to the next page, right? you know, and then obviously all the subtotaling, all this still applies. I mean, all these Excel formulas, we didn't do anything with them. We don't affect them in any bad way. You know, they would just kind of, and that's the nice thing about the custom, the title in the topic was custom sheet, because you can bring whatever sheet you want when we just fill it. And some of our customers have come up with some real interesting use cases for Excel docs. So it's very cool to see. And let me show you, I want to show you another example of just maybe if I go back to my document template, I want to just show you if I chose, instead of new tab, right? If I just said, don't do new tab, do new rows, do new rows. So instead of adding a tab, fill it with 10, but then start adding 11 and 12 right down the spreadsheet. And I'll just show you that it, you know, in this example, it's probably a better use of the expense sheet anyway. So now, if we look at it, we should see one tab. This is the template keeps coming up, comes over on this. So we're going to see one tab, right, with all the 12 here, right? So these, it's used to stop at 21, right? Now it's going 22, 23, and it's pushing. So it's pushing all the data from that sheet down the page, including, and Excel is nicely recalculating and recalibrating, you know, when it needs to total, etc. So, you know, again, this is probably a better use case instead of new tabs for an expense sheet, so we could see the real totals right on one sheet. Okay, so that's what the new rows versus insert rows versus insert new rows versus insert new tabs.